Chosen one, listen carefully, because what you are about to hear is not random, and it is not reaching you by accident. You are being protected from a counterfeit blessing, and this is the proof. I need you to slow down and let that settle in your spirit before you do anything else, because if you misread what is happening right now, you may call a rescue a rejection. You may call protection a punishment, and you may call a divine interruption a personal loss. But hear me clearly. What has been delayed? What has been blocked? What has not moved the way you expected? What looked promising and then suddenly lost momentum? What felt close and then began to feel wrong? What almost opened and then strangely fell apart was not taken from you to harm you. It was kept from you to save you. It was interrupted because it was wearing the appearance of favor without carrying the substance of truth. It looked like a blessing, it sounded like a blessing, it almost felt like a blessing. But beneath the surface, it was counterfeit, and heaven is not going to let a counterfeit gift become a permanent burden in the life of a chosen one. There are some of you listening right now who have been quietly confused because something you prayed about did not unfold the way you expected. You asked for confirmation, and instead of clear progress, you got friction. You asked for a door to open, and instead of clean access, you met resistance. You thought a connection was finally aligning, but then strange inconsistency began appearing. You thought an opportunity was your breakthrough, but then the energy around it shifted, the peace left, and what first looked smooth started becoming complicated. And because you are human, because you care, because you had hope attached to it, part of you started asking questions. Why would something get so close and then not happen? Why would something look right and still fall apart? Why would something feel promising and then become uncertain? Why would something that seemed like an answer start carrying confusion? Chosen one, the answer is deeper than delay. The answer is deeper than bad timing. The answer is deeper than a closed door. You were being protected from a counterfeit blessing, and the proof is already around you if you know how to read it. Listen to me carefully. Counterfeit blessings are dangerous because they do not arrive looking dark. They do not announce themselves as traps. They do not step into your life wearing warning labels. They come dressed in almost right, almost answered, almost aligned, almost peaceful, almost what you prayed for, almost what you had been waiting on, almost what your tired heart wanted to believe had finally arrived. That is why they are so deceptive. If they came looking ugly, you would reject them immediately. If they came carrying obvious darkness, you would know what to do. But a counterfeit blessing comes close enough to the real thing that only discernment can separate the appearance from the truth. And if your emotions are louder than your discernment, you will start fighting for something heaven is trying to remove. That is why this message had to find you now. Because some of you have been grieving what was actually a rescue. Some of you have been questioning what was actually protection. Some of you have been trying to make sense of why something would not settle, would not stabilize, would not become clear, and would not fully open, not realizing that instability itself was the sign. Confusion was the sign. Repeated disturbance was the sign. Loss of peace was the sign. Inconsistency was the sign. The fact that you had to keep forcing yourself to feel good about it was the sign. The fact that you had to keep ignoring what your spirit was whispering was the sign. The fact that it kept pulling you into anxiety instead of anchoring you in peace was the sign. Chosen one, a real blessing does not need endless self-convincing. A real blessing does not require you to constantly betray your own discernment just to keep believing in it. A real blessing may stretch you, yes. A real blessing may require growth, yes. A real blessing may arrive with responsibility, yes. But it will not consistently make your spirit feel compromised while your mind is busy trying to explain away the red flags. And that is one of the first proofs. The proof is not only in what fell apart. The proof is in what it was producing inside you while it was still standing. Go back and look at it honestly, not through the lens of attachment, not through the lens of disappointment, not through the lens of what you hoped it would become. Look at it through the lens of fruit. What was it producing in you? Was it producing clarity? Or was it producing overthinking? Was it producing peace? Or was it producing emotional instability? Was it producing confidence? Or was it making you second-guess your worth, your timing, your instincts, and your spiritual grounding? Was it drawing you closer to truth? Or was it pulling you into cycles of rationalization? Because, chosen one, counterfeit blessings often expose themselves by the kind of atmosphere they create long before they collapse. The collapse is not the first warning. The collapse is often the final mercy. There are people listening to this who know exactly what I mean. You tried to call it potential when your spirit already knew it was confusion. You tried to call it a test when your peace had already gone missing. You tried to call it timing when what was really happening was misalignment. You tried to call it deep when it was actually draining. You tried to call it a lesson in patience when it had already become a lesson in discernment. And I need you to hear me without resistance right now. Not everything that gets your attention deserves your attachment. Not everything that looks like increase is sent to enrich you. Not everything that arrives with excitement carries the hand of God behind it. Some things enter your life to reveal what still needs strengthening in your discernment. Some things enter your life to show you what kind of appearance can still pull on your hope. Some things come close enough to your future to make you practice saying no before the real yes arrives. This is why so many chosen ones get exhausted. Not because they lack vision, not because they lack faith, but because they keep trying to build emotional meaning around things that were only ever meant to be exposures. They keep revisiting what heaven already interrupted. They keep trying to decode what was already being denied. They keep calling almost a promise. They keep trying to breathe destiny into something that was only designed to reveal the difference between attraction and alignment. And I know that part can sting, because when your heart is involved, when your desire is involved, when your hope has already leaned forward, it is painful to accept that what looked like an answer was not an answer. But hear me carefully. It is far less painful to lose a counterfeit blessing early than to inherit it fully and discover later that what entered your life as excitement was actually sent to become your burden. Let me go deeper, because this is where the proof becomes sharper. One of the clearest proofs that you were being protected is what started showing up around the thing itself. Strange tension, mixed signals, uneasy timing, repeated interruptions, hidden inconsistency, missing honesty, a lack of clean stability, doors that looked open one day and uncertain the next, energy that felt bright at the beginning and heavy later, momentum that kept rising and collapsing, a need for constant explanation, a need to keep translating behavior that should have been clear by now. Chosen one, when something is truly aligned, it does not need to be perfect, but it does carry a certain internal coherence. It does not keep requiring you to ignore yourself in order to stay connected to it. It does not keep requiring you to abandon your peace in order to keep calling it promising. It does not keep demanding that you silence the part of you that keeps noticing what is off. Now hear this, because this is for the ones who still feel a little resistance. Sometimes the counterfeit blessing is not bad in an obvious sense. Sometimes it is not evil, not dramatic, not catastrophic, not scandalous. Sometimes it is simply less than what you prayed for, less than what you were shown, less than what truly matches where you are being led. And because it is not openly destructive, you are tempted for it. You are tempted to say, maybe this is enough. Maybe this is what it looks like. Maybe I am expecting too much. Maybe I should just be grateful this came at all. Chosen one, gratitude is holy, but settling is not the same thing as gratitude. Accepting what is beneath alignment because you are tired of waiting is not maturity. It is emotional fatigue trying to make peace with misalignment. And heaven knows the difference. Heaven knows when you are asking from a healed place and when you are reaching from weariness. Heaven knows when something is close enough to trick your longing, but not true enough to sustain your future. That is why you are being protected. Because a counterfeit blessing is not only something harmful, it is also something that would have occupied the space meant for the real thing. And that is where the danger becomes serious. A counterfeit blessing does not only wound by what it is,
it also delays by where it sits. It takes up emotional space, mental space, time, energy, expectation, focus, prayer, interpretation, recovery. It becomes a false assignment. It pulls your attention into maintenance instead of movement. It keeps you trying to stabilize what was never sent to endure. It keeps you praying over what should have been released. It keeps you attached to a version of increase that would have slowly trained you to call compromise normal. And that is exactly why it had to be interrupted. Some of you are only now beginning to see the proof in hindsight. At the time, you felt disappointed. At the time, you felt confused. At the time, you felt the sting of almost. But now that some distance has entered the picture, now that more of the truth has surfaced, now that patterns are easier to read, you are beginning to realize just how much was hidden under the surface.
You are beginning to realize that if it had worked out exactly when you wanted it to, you would have stepped into something you were romanticizing instead of discerning. You are beginning to realize that the thing you are asking to be preserved was carrying seeds of confusion you could not fully see yet. You are beginning to realize that your peace was being trained by the interruption, not punished by it. You are beginning to realize that what looked like rejection was actually filtration. And some of you have not even seen the full proof yet. That is another reason this message matters, because there are situations where the evidence is still unfolding. The exposure is still developing. The truth is still surfacing. The hidden motive is still coming up into the light. The missing piece is still making its way into your understanding. And until that happens, you may still feel the temptation to grieve the appearance of what could have been. But chosen one, trust what has already been shown. Trust what your spirit already picked up on before your mind had language for it. Trust the disturbance that kept repeating. Trust the peace that kept leaving. Trust the instability that would not settle. Trust the way you kept needing to over-explain what was supposedly meant for you. Trust the repeated sense that something was not clean. That was not paranoia. That was discernment trying to protect you before the full evidence arrived. This is the part many people do not want to hear, but it will set you free if you let it. Sometimes, the reason something was blocked is because you were trying to receive it from the wrong hands. Sometimes the reason something slowed down is because the container was wrong, even if the desire itself was valid. Sometimes, what you wanted was not wrong, but where it was appearing from was not pure, not stable, not true, not aligned. You were not wrong to desire increase. You were not wrong to desire love, opportunity, provision, open doors, expansion, partnership, momentum, restoration. The problem was not always the desire. The problem was the disguise. The problem was the package. The problem was that the answer appeared in a form that could not be trusted to carry the weight of the blessing you are asking for. Let me say that again, because this is where many chosen ones get emotionally entangled.
The answer appeared in a form that could not be trusted to carry the weight of the blessing you are asking for. That is counterfeit. It is not counterfeit because there was nothing good at all. It is counterfeit because it looked close enough to the real thing to tempt you into opening your life before truth had proven itself. It is counterfeit because it awakened hope before it earned trust. It is counterfeit because it resembled fulfillment while quietly carrying compromise. And a counterfeit blessing always asks you to ignore something essential in order to keep believing in it. It asks you to silence your standards. It asks you to reinterpret what should be obvious. It asks you to call instability mysterious. It asks you to call absence depth. It asks you to call confusion timing. It asks you to call your unrest overthinking. It asks you to keep leaning in where wisdom is trying to pull you back. This is why the proof is not just external. The proof is internal. The proof is what kept happening in your spirit every time you got close to fully embracing it. The proof is how your peace reacted. The proof is how your discernment kept tapping you on the shoulder. The proof is how your clarity got cloudy around it. The proof is how your confidence became negotiable around it. The proof is how your boundaries started feeling inconvenient instead of wise. The proof is how you kept having to downplay your own discomfort just to remain attached. Chosen one. Anything that consistently weakens your inner clarity while asking for deeper access is not safe to call a blessing. And here is another proof. The thing may have looked attractive, but it required too much distortion to keep alive, too much excuse-making, too much waiting without clean movement, too much explaining away what did not add up, too much performing peace instead of actually having peace, too much pressure to remain emotionally invested in something that was not emotionally honest, too much faith being spent just to maintain hope in a structure that was never proving itself trustworthy. That is not how aligned increase feels. That is not how a real blessing behaves. A real blessing may require stewardship, yes. A real blessing may require maturity, yes. A real blessing may require patience and obedience, yes. But it will not demand continuous self-betrayal as the entry fee. So if you have been asking for proof, here is part of your answer. The proof is in what kept being revealed every time you got honest. The proof is in what began unraveling the moment you stopped forcing a positive interpretation. The proof is in the distance between the image and the fruit. The proof is in how much work it took just to keep your hope from collapsing. The proof is in what your spirit knew before the situation fully exposed itself. And the proof is also in this. Once it began moving away, once it began losing hold, once it began breaking apart, something in you may have felt disappointed, but something deeper in you also started breathing again. Do you hear me? Something deeper in you started breathing again. That quiet release was a sign. That return of clarity was a sign. That subtle relief underneath the disappointment was a sign. Because even when the mind mourned the possibility, the spirit recognized the rescue. If this word is reaching the right place in you, then stay close, because the next layer is even more important. It is not enough to know that you are being protected. You also need to understand why counterfeit blessings keep showing up near breakthrough seasons, and why the closer you get to real alignment, the more convincing the almost can start to look. Once you understand that, you will stop grieving every interruption, and you will begin blessing the doors that refused to open before deception had the chance to settle in your life. Chosen one, hear me with your spirit, and not just your emotions, because counterfeit blessings do not appear most aggressively in empty seasons. They often appear
when you are getting close to something real. They show up when your discernment is being stretched, when your standards are being tested, when your desire is becoming visible, when your prayers are ripening, when your hope is trying to stand back up after disappointment, and when your future is close enough that anything resembling it suddenly feels harder to evaluate.
That is why some of you have been wondering why the almost felt so convincing this time, why it looked so close, why it sounded so familiar, why it touched the exact place in you that had been waiting, why it seemed to echo the very thing you had been praying for. Chosen one. The reason it felt so convincing is because counterfeit blessings are often tailored to what your heart is ready to recognize. They do not come to insult your intelligence, they come to bypass it. They do not come looking completely foreign, they come looking adjacent. They come carrying echoes, fragments, similarities, enough resemblance to awaken your longing before your discernment has time to complete its sentence. And if you do not understand that, you will keep blaming yourself for being hopeful, when the real lesson was never that hope was wrong. The real lesson was that hope without discernment is vulnerable to imitation. This is why you must stop measuring everything by how strongly it stirs you at first. Some of the most dangerous, almost blessings enter with intensity. They enter with timing that seems uncanny. They enter with language that feels familiar. They enter with details that appear too precise to ignore. They enter with momentum that makes you think, finally, 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 this is moving. Finally, this is opening. Finally, this is the answer. Finally, this is the release after all the waiting. But hear me carefully, chosen one. Intensity is not the same thing as purity. Familiarity is not the same thing as alignment. Acceleration is not the same thing as confirmation. Just because something enters your life with force does not mean it entered with truth. Just because something touched your desire does not mean it was authorized to remain in your future. And some of you needed this exact word because you were taught to trust movement more than fruit. You were taught to trust chemistry more than peace. You were taught to trust possibility more than pattern. But heaven is reteaching you now. Heaven is showing you that the proof of a thing is not in how bright it first appears. The proof is in what it keeps producing once your emotions are no longer doing all the interpretation. That is why the counterfeit blessing had to be exposed before it became more expensive. Let that settle. Before it became more expensive. Because, chosen one, the cost of something is not always visible at the beginning. Sometimes the beginning is exciting. Sometimes the beginning is flattering. Sometimes the beginning feels like a rival. But the cost appears later. The cost appears when your peace has to keep adjusting to instability. The cost appears when your standards begin negotiating with your attachment. The cost appears when your energy starts being spent on maintenance instead of growth. The cost appears when you are no longer building your future, but managing confusion. The cost appears when what entered as promise starts requiring pieces of you that were never supposed to be surrendered. And that is why protection often looks harsh before it looks merciful. Some of you are still standing in the middle of that interruption and wondering whether you should keep fighting for the thing that keeps slipping out of your hands. That is why I need to be plain with you. If you have to keep wrestling your spirit into agreement, it is not alignment. If you have to keep silencing what feels off, it is not peace. If you have to keep lowering your clarity to preserve your hope, it is not wisdom. And if every time you tell the truth about the situation, the image weakens, then the image was never strong enough to trust. Chosen one, the real blessing in your life will not need your self-deception in order to survive. It will not need you to become smaller to keep it comfortable. It will not need you to call dysfunction mystery
just so you can stay attached. It will not need you to override what has been shown repeatedly. Yes, real blessings require stewardship. Yes, real blessings require maturity. Yes, real blessings may challenge your comfort,
but they do not ask you to become spiritually blurry in order to stay connected to them.
and that is where many of you are being freed right now. Not just from a thing, but from a pattern. The pattern of overvaluing what is almost because you are tired of waiting for what is whole. The pattern of calling repeated confusion a test of faith. The pattern of turning red flags into riddles because part of you still wants the answer to be yes. The pattern of thinking that if something hurts enough, it must be meaningful enough. Chosen one, pain is not proof of destiny. Difficulty is not proof of divine assignment. Emotional intensity is not proof of spiritual depth. Some things hurt because they are exposing an attachment that cannot go with you. Some things disappoint because they are making room for truth. Some things collapse because they should never have been carrying your future in the first place.
Let me go even deeper, because this is where the enemy of discernment often hides, in your fatigue. When you are tired, almost starts looking acceptable. When you are tired, partial starts looking sufficient. When you are tired, mixed signals start feeling better than silence. When you are tired, anything that resembles movement can tempt you to call it progress. That is why you must not interpret your life only from the place of your weariness. Weariness is real, but it is not always truthful. It can make compromise feel comforting. It can make counterfeit access feel like relief. It can make low-level inconsistency feel better than emptiness. But heaven does not interpret your future from your fatigue. Heaven interprets your future from your calling, from your design, from your assignment, from the level of truth required to sustain what you have been promised. And that is why some things are being denied, even while part of you still wants to say yes. It is not because your desire is being mocked. It is because your future is being guarded. If this word is for you, then you already know there were moments where the signal was clear and you tried to negotiate with it anyway. Moments where your spirit tightened and your mind tried to loosen the warning. Moments where peace withdrew and you kept trying to rename the disturbance. Moments where patterns emerged and you told yourself you needed more time, more context, more patience, more understanding, when the reality was that understanding had already begun speaking through repetition. Chosen one, repeated misalignment is communication. Repeated unease is communication. Repeated inconsistency is communication. Repeated absence of peace is communication. You do not need endless new signs when the old signs keep saying the same thing. And one of the reasons this message found you now is because it is time to stop begging complexity to tell you what simplicity has already revealed. The proof is also in what happened once the illusion started breaking. Once the shine began fading, what remained? Once the emotional charge lowered, what remained? Once the image could no longer carry the whole story, what remained? Did what remained still look trustworthy? Did what remained still feel clean? Did what remained still support the meaning you had assigned to it? Or did it begin exposing how much of your hope had been built on projection? This is not to shame you. This is to free you. Projection is what happens when longing fills in what reality has not actually proven. Projection is what happens when desire starts completing unfinished evidence. Projection is what happens when you give something the benefit of a future it has not yet demonstrated the capacity to carry. And counterfeit blessings thrive in projection. They thrive where imagination is doing more work than fruit. They thrive where potential is receiving more honor than pattern. They thrive where your spirit is sending warnings, but your hope is still busy decorating the image. That is why you need a new standard in this season. Not a harsher heart, but a clearer one. Not cynicism, but accuracy. Not fear, but clean discernment. You need a standard that asks better questions. Not just, does this excite me? Not just, does this resemble what I prayed for? Not just, does this feel significant? But also, what is this producing in me? What am I having to ignore to remain attached? What has been repeated often enough that I can no longer call it accidental? What part of me keeps wanting this to be true, even when truth has become costly to deny? These are the questions that protect chosen ones from baptizing counterfeits with spiritual language. These are the questions that keep you from confusing access with assignment, chemistry with covenant, opportunity with authorization, and movement with meaning. And hear me carefully, because this next part matters. Being protected from a counterfeit blessing does not mean you failed. It does not mean you missed it. It does not mean you are foolish beyond repair. It means you are loved enough to be interrupted. It means you are watched over enough to be blocked. It means your path is being guarded at a level your emotions may not always appreciate in the moment. Some of you are interpreting the interruption as personal embarrassment. You are thinking, how did I not see it sooner? How did I get this emotionally invested? How did I almost step into that? How did I let myself hope for this? Chosen one, let that shame go. Shame will make you hard, where wisdom is only trying to make you clear. The lesson is not that you should stop hoping. The lesson is that your hope now needs stronger gates. Your heart does not need to close. It needs to become more accurate in what it permits to enter deeply. And once you understand that, gratitude starts showing up in strange places. You start becoming grateful for delays you once resented, grateful for doors that stalled, grateful for conversations that revealed too much, grateful for inconsistencies that became impossible to ignore, grateful for the discomfort that would not let you settle, grateful for the loss of momentum that exposed the false foundation, grateful for the interruptions that kept you from a larger entanglement. Chosen one, one day you will look back at some of these near misses and thank God with more sincerity than you ever used while asking for them to work. One day, you will see how expensive the almost would have been. One day, you will see how much your peace was saved, how much time was preserved, how much confusion was prevented, how much compromise was blocked before it ever had the chance to settle into your identity and your future. That is the proof. The proof is not only that it left. The proof is not only that it failed to stabilize. The proof is not only that it lost momentum. The proof is what kept being revealed every time you got still enough to stop performing optimism. The proof is what your spirit kept saying under the noise. The proof is how your peace kept refusing to partner with the image. The proof is how the thing required more imagination than truth to maintain. The proof is how clarity began returning the moment your grip started loosening. The proof is that what looked like deprivation was actually preservation. The proof is that heaven refused to let your future be built on what your spirit would have had to keep apologizing for. So listen to me now, chosen one. Because the right response is not bitterness. The right response is blessing the rescue. The right response is honoring the interruption. The right response is thanking God for what did not happen, for what did not stay, for what did not fully open, for what did not become permanent, for what was denied before it could become a long season of preventable repair. The right response is not to chase the image one last time just because part of you still wants closure. The right response is to let the proof speak. Let the pattern speak.
let the fruit speak. Let the loss of peace speak. Let the repeated instability speak. Let the rescue count as love, even if it did not feel like love at first. And if this message is finding you exactly where it needs to, then hold on to this final truth. The fact that you were protected from a counterfeit blessing means something real still matters enough to guard. Protection only makes sense where value exists. Interruption only matters where direction matters. Filtration only matters where something precious is being preserved. So do not read this season as emptiness. Read it as refinement. Do not read it as punishment. Read it as precision. Do not read it as loss alone. Read it as evidence that your life cannot afford to be casually joined to what merely resembles your promise while quietly violating your peace. What is for you will not require you to betray your discernment in order to receive it. What is for you will not need disguise to survive inspection. What is for you will not collapse the moment truth enters the room. And because that is true, you can release the almost without fear, because the real thing never needs you to call confusion by a holier name. Chosen one, there is another layer to this that many people do not understand until much later, and it is this. Counterfeit blessings do not only test your discernment, they also reveal where your soul is still vulnerable to being rushed. That is why some of you felt unusually pulled towards something that, in hindsight, did not deserve that level of emotional investment. It was not always because the thing itself was so extraordinary. Sometimes, it was because it touched a place in you that had been waiting a long time to feel seen, to feel chosen, to feel relieved, to feel as though the struggle was finally ending, to feel as though the prayer was finally becoming visible. And when something touches a tired place in you with enough resemblance to hope, the temptation is not just to receive it. The temptation is to speed up your trust before truth has had time to mature. That is what counterfeit blessings often target. They target the speed of your agreement. They do not always need full access immediately. They only need you to emotionally lean forward before the evidence has earned that posture. Once you lean forward too quickly, your interpretation begins protecting the image, your hope begins defending the possibility, and your discernment starts having to fight through your attachment just to be heard. That is why this protection matters so much. Because if heaven only protected you from obviously destructive things, that would require very little maturity from you. But some of the most dangerous detours in a chosen one's life are not the obviously dark doors. They are the almost right doors, the almost clean doors, the almost honest doors, the almost stable doors, the almost aligned doors, the ones that could have occupied years of your life because they were not wrong enough to reject quickly and not right enough to build on safely. And hear me clearly, chosen one. There are seasons where one wrong attachment can cost more than one obvious enemy. Why? Because obvious darkness usually triggers resistance, but subtle misalignment often invites reasoning. You start explaining it, you start giving it context, you start allowing it to stay under the label of maybe, long after your spirit has already stopped calling it safe. That is why protection from a counterfeit blessing is one of the deepest forms of mercy. It is mercy that interrupts not only what would hurt you, but what would slowly normalize compromise inside you. And this is where you need to look honestly at what this season has been teaching you. It has not only been teaching you what to reject, it has been teaching you what peace actually sounds like in your own spirit. It has been teaching you the difference between nervous excitement and clean confirmation. It has been teaching you the difference between chemistry and coherence. It has been teaching you the difference between being stimulated and being settled. Some of you were raised around so much emotional inconsistency that peace felt unfamiliar and intensity felt meaningful by default. So when something stirred you strongly, you assumed it must matter deeply. But intensity can come from misalignment just as easily as from destiny. Intensity can come from attachment, projection, fear, fantasy, lack, fatigue, and the human need for relief. Peace, on the other hand, is not always dramatic. It does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes peace is the quiet absence of inner negotiation. Sometimes peace is what remains when you stop forcing an interpretation. Sometimes peace is what returns the moment you tell yourself the truth. That is why for many of you, the counterfeit blessing already exposed itself the moment you stopped trying to rescue its image. The moment you got honest, the structure weakened. The moment you stopped giving it the benefit of your imagination, it could not hold the same meaning. The moment you asked what it was actually producing instead of what it might someday become, the answer changed. And that shift matters. Because one of the strongest proofs that something is counterfeit is how dependent it is on your projection. If it has to keep borrowing credibility from your hope, it is not standing in its own truth. If it has to keep borrowing meaning from your longing, it is not carrying its own weight. If it needs your silence in order to remain attractive, it is not clean enough to be trusted. Real blessings can survive your honesty. Real blessings can survive your questions. Real blessings can survive scrutiny, patience, boundaries, prayer, time, and truth. Counterfeit blessings often start deteriorating the moment you stop protecting them from reality. Some of you are in a place right now where you are no longer asking, why didn't it happen? But why did it get so close? And that is an important question. Why did it get that close? Why did it get near enough to stir you? Why did it get near enough to feel personal? Why did it get near enough to make you picture what might have been? Chosen one, sometimes things get close because closeness is what exposes you. Distance would not have taught the lesson. If it stayed far away, you might never have seen how easily your hope could be influenced by resemblance. If it remained clearly unavailable, you might never have discovered what kind of almost still had power to pull on your emotions. If it never approached, you might never have noticed how quickly you wanted to call proximity confirmation. So yes, it got close. But getting close was not the same as being assigned. Getting near was not the same as being yours.
And the fact that it came close enough to reveal something does not mean it came close enough to keep.
There are chosen ones listening to this who need to stop treating closeness like entitlement. Just because something came near does not mean it had the right to stay. Just because something almost opened does not mean it was meant to fully enter. Just because someone spoke your language, reflected your desire, mirrored your values in fragments, or carried pieces of what you had been praying for, does not mean they were the vessel for what you asked heaven to send. Sometimes resemblance is allowed because discernment must be trained in real conditions, not imaginary ones. Discernment is not built by only facing obvious no's. It is built by learning how to detect what is off in the presence of strong almosts. And let me say something else that may free some of you. Sometimes the counterfeit blessing reveals more than the thing itself. Sometimes it reveals where you still equate delay with deprivation. Sometimes it reveals where you still assume that if the real thing has not shown up yet, then the next available thing deserves more consideration than it actually should. Sometimes it reveals where you still fear emptiness so much that partial truth feels easier to tolerate than clean waiting. But clean waiting is not wasted waiting. Clean waiting is not empty. Clean waiting is not punishment. Clean waiting is one of the ways your future stays protected from contamination. Because the longer you stay free from false assignments, the more fully available you remain for what is actually aligned. The enemy of alignment is not always disaster. Often, it is distraction with emotional appeal.
This is why some of you are being called in this season to become less impressed by appearance and more anchored in fruit. Less moved by momentum and more attentive to consistency. Less enchanted by what could be and more grounded in what is actually being shown. Not because your heart is becoming colder, but because your heart is becoming more trustworthy in what it permits. There is a difference between having an open heart and having an unguarded gate. A chosen one is not called to become suspicious of everything, but a chosen one is called to stop offering depth where there is still too much distortion. And I need you to hear that without guilt. Boundaries are not unbelief. Slowness is not fear. Discernment is not negativity. Testing the fruit is not hardness. It is stewardship. It is protection. It is wisdom refusing to be rushed by resemblance. Now let us go even deeper. Because some of you are not just recovering from disappointment. You are recovering from the energy it took to keep interpreting the counterfeit blessing while it was in your life. The constant reading, the constant wondering, the constant checking, the constant self-talk, the constant explaining, the constant emotional adjustment, the constant effort to remain peaceful in something that kept disturbing your peace. Do you understand how draining that is? A counterfeit blessing does not only threaten your future, it drains your present. It consumes bandwidth. It occupies emotional attention. It steals focus from what is actually growing. It makes you unavailable to your own life because so much of your awareness is tied up in trying to understand what should have already become clearer by now. That is another proof you were being protected. Whatever requires that much distortion to remain attractive is already too expensive. And some of you did not realize how tired you were until the thing began leaving. You did not realize how much of your inner energy was wrapped around it until the attachment loosened and your mind became quieter. You did not realize how much explaining you had been doing until you stopped doing it. You did not realize how much your spirit had been compensating until the compensation was no longer required. That quiet that returned, that is proof. That internal exhale, that is proof. That subtle sense that your thoughts became cleaner when the connection weakened, the opportunity stalled, the door closed, or the image broke, that is proof. Because there are times when disappointment and relief arrive in the same moment. And when they do, you need to pay attention to which one is coming from your soul and which one is coming from your attachment. Chosen one, this is why you cannot afford to go back just because the almost still carries emotional residue. The emotional residue is not instruction. Missing the image is not instruction. Wondering what might have been is not instruction. Nostalgia for what was never fully stable is not instruction. The enemy of your next season will not always come as obvious destruction. Sometimes it will come as sentimental reconsideration. It will come as the urge to revisit what has already proven itself unclean. It will come as the temptation to reopen what was mercy to close. It will come dressed as, maybe I was too strict. Maybe I gave up too soon. Maybe I should try one more time. When the deeper truth is that you are simply feeling the leftovers of an attachment that has not fully detoxed yet. Do not confuse detox with direction. Do not confuse residue with revelation. And yes, I said detox, because some of you need to stop calling every emotional after effect a sign. Sometimes the reason you still feel pulled is not because the thing is right,
Sometimes it is because your system got used to managing it. Sometimes it is because your hope invested deeply before your discernment completed the evaluation. Sometimes it is because your imagination built rooms that reality never fully inhabited. Sometimes it is because your heart has to catch up with what truth already knows. That does not mean go backward. That means stay still long enough for the pole to lose authority. Stay honest long enough for the image to stop glowing. Stay grounded long enough for the real lesson to replace the false longing. Because once that happens, something beautiful begins. Your standards stop feeling like obstacles and start feeling like protection. Your discernment stops feeling inconvenient and starts feeling precious. Your waiting stops feeling empty and starts feeling clean. You stop begging God to bless what keeps disturbing your peace, and you start thanking Him for refusing to let your weariness choose your future. You start realizing that not every no is loss. Not every closed door is lack. Not every interruption is a setback. Some interruptions are holy. Some denials are loving. Some delays are strategic. Some endings are rescue in a form your emotions would not have agreed with until much later. And if this word is sitting heavily but clearly on your spirit, then let me leave you with this truth before the next part unfolds. You do not need to fully understand every hidden reason yet in order to honor the protection. You do not need every missing detail in order to stop fighting for what did not stabilize. You do not need the counterfeit blessing to turn into obvious disaster before you bless the rescue. Sometimes the earliest act of wisdom is simply this: agreeing with the interruption before your emotions are fully comfortable with it. Agreeing with the loss of momentum, agreeing with the exposure, agreeing with the collapse of the image, agreeing with the return of your peace. Agreeing that what kept requiring too much distortion was never worthy of permanent room in your future. And once you agree with that, you make space for something clean to find you, without having to compete with what only looked holy from a distance. Chosen one, this is where everything shifts for you. This is where your perspective begins to change, and everything that seemed unclear, frustrating, or even discouraging begins to make sense in light of what's coming next. You may not see it fully right now, but the reason you've had to endure some of the most difficult seasons of waiting, the reason you've had to endure the closed doors, the reason you've had to endure the almosts and the almost rights, is because they were never meant to define you. They were meant to clarify who you are not and prepare you for the blessing that is coming, that will align with your true identity and purpose. See, sometimes the greatest act of faith is not just asking God for what we want, but trusting Him when what we want doesn't show up the way we expected. The delay is not denial. The interruption is not rejection. The confusion is not a permanent condition. The false starts are not your final destination. The unanswered prayers are not unheard prayers. What you've been waiting on is still coming, but it had to be filtered through heaven's wisdom. It had to be refined, reshaped, redefined, and sometimes even rerouted to ensure it could handle the weight of your future. And that process, though it's difficult, though it's painful, though it often feels long, is part of the divine design to protect you from anything less than what you truly need. It's not always about getting what you want when you want it. It's about receiving what you are meant to have at the perfect time. And what you are meant to have will never be counterfeit. Understand this. What you've lost, what has been delayed, what has been taken, was never really yours if it couldn't stand the test of time, if it couldn't stand the weight of God's promise. The thing that was meant for you, the one that's been specifically tailored for your calling, for your growth, for your purpose. It will endure. It will not be shaken by doubt. It will not be weakened by the storms. It will stand through every season and continue to grow, to prosper, and to bear fruit that lasts. And when it comes, you will know it, because it will not require you to sacrifice your peace for it. It will not require you to compromise your values for it. It will not require you to bend your standards to make it fit into your life. It will arrive with a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that assures you that it's exactly what you've been waiting for. But in the meantime, there are some things you need to remember. Not every opportunity that shows up is yours to claim. Not every door that opens is meant for you to walk through. Not every connection that sparks is meant to be part of your journey. And the sooner you learn to trust this, the sooner you will begin to see the clarity of your path. You do not have to chase everything that catches your attention. You do not have to fight for everything that looks good from a distance. You do not have to give your energy to everything that promises success. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is to wait without fear, to wait without feeling inadequate, to wait without questioning if you've missed your chance. Because what is for you will not pass you by. It will find you exactly when you are ready, when you have been refined enough, when you have grown enough, when you are in alignment with it. There's a reason why it's taken time for you to see the full picture. There's a reason why things have unfolded in the way that they have. And that reason is because God has been aligning everything, shifting things in the background, moving pieces around to make sure that when your moment comes, everything is in place. When you receive the blessing that's meant for you, it will fit like a glove. It will not be forced. It will not be rushed. It will not cause confusion. It will bring clarity. It will bring peace. It will bring confirmation that you've been waiting for. And while you wait, I need you to remember that the counterfeit will always try to show up first. The counterfeit will always show up when you are on the brink of something real. It will make promises it can't keep. It will try to offer comfort it can't deliver. It will promise progress, but only deliver confusion. It will show up looking like what you wanted, but feeling like a burden. And when that happens, you have to stand firm in your discernment and say no. You have to say no to the almost, to the fake, to the thing that looks right, but does not carry the fullness of what you are meant to receive. You have to remember that anything that comes into your life has to be in alignment with your purpose, with your peace, with your future. If it does not match those things, it is not meant for you, no matter how good it looks in the moment. So, chosen one, this is your call to action. Your proof is in your peace. Your proof is in your discernment. Your proof is in the fact that you are still standing, still waiting, still trusting, even in the face of confusion. And with each passing day, you are being prepared for something greater. You are being protected from counterfeit blessings, and in that protection, your future is being shaped. The real blessing will come when you are ready for it, and when it does, you will know. It will not be mistaken for anything else. It will be the one that feels right in every way. It will be the one that aligns with your purpose, your peace, your heart. And when it arrives, it will stay. It will stay and bear fruit that lasts. Do not settle for less. Do not settle for almost. Do not settle for anything that requires you to abandon your peace or your discernment. The real blessing is on its way, and it is worth the wait. Trust in the process. Trust in the protection, and trust that everything you need will come in its perfect timing. This week, chosen one, your focus must stay sharp. Your heart must stay open to what is true, and your spirit must remain steady as you wait for the blessing that is yours. And when it arrives, you will know it, because it will be exactly what you've been waiting for. And it will not cause you to compromise your peace to receive it. That is your proof, your protection, your confirmation, and your promise. Chosen one, hear me as I speak clearly and directly into your spirit. What you are being prepared for is so much greater than the distractions you have encountered. You have been tested, you have been tried, and you have been refined, not because the counterfeit could defeat you, but because it was never meant to stand with you. The distractions were allowed to reveal the strength of your discernment, and now that you have seen the difference between what looks like your blessing and what truly is, you will never be moved by anything that doesn't carry the substance of truth. This is your season of clarity. This is your season of sharpening. This is your season where your peace will no longer be negotiable for what merely appears to be a blessing. Your heart has been conditioned for the real thing, and nothing less will do. So listen closely to what I am about to say, because your future depends on this understanding. You are entering a period where every false connection, every almost opportunity, and every surface-level blessing will become painfully clear. The things that once made you hesitate, the things that once pulled at your emotions and your attention, will no longer have the same hold over you. What once felt uncertain will now feel like a clear message from your spirit, telling you to move away. And I know that for some of you, that message will be difficult to receive at first. You may question it. You may wonder if you're making the right decision. But I need you to hear me when I say, your peace is the ultimate confirmation. If it doesn't bring you peace, it's not meant for you. If it makes your spirit uneasy, if it causes you to doubt, if it shakes your confidence in your purpose and your calling, then it is not the blessing you have been waiting for. Real blessings bring peace, not confusion. They bring certainty, not hesitation. They bring alignment, not dissonance. And now, chosen one, here is where you must make the distinction. The counterfeit will still show up, trying to convince you that it's the real thing. It will show up in various forms, each more convincing than the last. But I am telling you now, with certainty, that you will not be deceived. You have already been prepared for this moment. You have already seen enough to know the difference between the real thing and what only pretends to be. The counterfeit will always try to appear as an answer to your prayers, but it will never truly satisfy your soul. It may come looking like opportunity, but it will never bring the growth you're meant to experience. It may come looking like relationship, but it will never nurture the love and connection you've been praying for. It may come looking like success, but it will never bring the fulfillment and peace that your spirit has been craving.
This is why you had to be tested. This is why you had to be delayed. This is why you had to experience the tension, the confusion, and the frustration that you've been through. It was not because you weren't worthy. It was because your future was being protected. It was because the thing that was meant for you had to be preserved, and it had to be kept away from anything that would lessen its impact on your life. The counterfeit was never meant to be your destination. It was only meant to reveal your heart's true desires and your capacity for discernment. The delay was not punishment. It was preparation. And now that you can clearly see what is not for you, you are ready to receive what is. Some of you, I know, still feel the residue of the counterfeit in your emotions. You still feel the pull of what almost was. You still wonder if you missed something or if you gave up too soon. But hear me clearly. The real blessing cannot be rushed. It will not be hurried. It will arrive in its perfect time, and when it does, you will know it with every part of your being. It will not require explanation. It will not require justification. It will not require emotional labor to maintain. It will simply fit. And when it fits, everything will align with ease.
You will not have to force it. You will not have to convince anyone of its value. The real blessing will speak for itself, and its presence will be undeniable. It will stand as a testimony to your patience, your discernment, and your faithfulness.
And the counterfeit? The counterfeit will fade. It will fade into the background where it belongs. It will no longer demand your attention. It will no longer pull at your heart. It will no longer cloud your thinking. It will disappear as if it was never meant to stay. And in its place will rise what was truly meant for you. The counterfeit only had one job, to make you doubt. But the real blessing has only one job, to bring you into your full potential, to bring you into alignment with what you were always meant to be, to do, and to have.
So now, chosen one, as you stand in the place of clarity, I want you to declare this over your life. I will not settle for what is less than what I've prayed for. I will not settle for almost. I will not settle for counterfeit. I will not be moved by what looks good but carries no peace. I will wait for the real thing. And when it comes, I will know it because it will fit perfectly into my life, and it will bring peace that I have not known before. I will no longer rush to fill spaces that God is still working on. I will no longer entertain options that are beneath the calling I've been given. I will no longer compromise my standards just to fill the silence. I will wait with expectation, knowing that what is meant for me is already on its way. I will not settle for anything less than what heaven has ordained for me.
This is your season of refinement. This is your season of elevation. This is your season where you no longer accept the counterfeit and where you fully receive the authentic blessings that have been set aside for you from the beginning of time. You are being prepared for greatness, and nothing can stop it. Your future is protected, your destiny is secure, and your peace is the confirmation that you are aligned with what is coming. Trust in the process, trust in the protection, and trust that everything that has been kept from you, every closed door, every missed opportunity, has only been a shield guarding the real blessing that will change your life forever. Do not let the counterfeit steal your joy any longer. You are ready for what is real. You are ready for what has been reserved for you. And when it comes, you will walk in it with the confidence and the peace that can only come from knowing that what you are receiving was meant for you all along.